Miles Taylor, and former Justice Department senior trial attorney and executive director of Justice Connection, Stacey Young. Welcome to you both. Miles, so when the first Trump administration tried and failed to block the publication of Bolton's memoir, a federal judge said he had, quote, likely jeopardized national security by disclosing classified information. If proven Bolton broke the law, does it matter if the investigation began as retaliation? I mean, is there any comfort hearing Vance imply, if you didn't break the law, you won't get prosecuted?
Yeah, I'm not taking a lot of comfort in the vice president's comments. I mean, here's the core of it, Alex, is I don't know the details of the Bolton case, and, you know, little bits are coming out one piece at a time. What I do know is if you watch anyone long enough, anyone, you will find them committing some kind of infraction. And I don't think it's a coincidence at all that the people that this administration has found committing infractions happen to be the president's enemies. I've yet to see anyone who we would consider one of Trump's allies that the Justice Department has prominently gone after. And yet, many of the people that you would presume to be on Donald Trump's enemies list in a matter of months since he came back to office find themselves under federal investigation, myself included.
Yeah. You know, Stacey, to Miles's point there, you have New York Attorney General Letitia James, Senator Adam Schiff, former FBI Chief James Comey. They are all among Trump's perceived enemies who are under investigation by the administration. And Miles, of course. What's your response to these moves, and what are the dangers of Trump weaponizing the government against his enemies?
It's terrifying. What we're seeing is the president of the United States using federal law enforcement apparatuses to seemingly punish his enemies. It's lawless, it's undemocratic, and it chills speech and spreads fear. It really is insane for the president to get involved in investigative or prosecutorial decisions. These are decisions that should be made by the Department of Justice independently and impartially. And the rule of law simply can't survive in any meaningful way if DOJ is weaponized against the president's enemy by the president himself.
And Stacey, you worked at the DOJ for, what, 18 years, right? Overseeing a division that handles workplace equality, and you left the department when Trump took office in January. You now run Justice Connection. It supports current and former DOJ lawyers that have been targeted by the administration. Are you a stronger advocate for DOJ personnel from outside the agency than inside? And if so, why is that? And what support does Justice Connection provide?
Well, I will say that DOJ's workforce needs support more than it's ever needed support, and it needs support from the outside of the department at the moment. And you know what we're doing is we really are serving a very desperate need. DOJ employees inside the department and some who have left are being targeted by this administration for having done their jobs. We're seeing right now January 6 prosecutors being fired, other prosecutors being fired, FBI agents and national security attorneys being fired, immigration judges, ATF officials being fired. This is a terrifying moment, and Justice Connection has been here to provide DOJ employees with support. We're connecting them to pro bono legal representation when they're fired or demoted. We're connecting them to mental health support because many are experiencing trauma. We're providing them with employment support. We're providing them with free media training and connections to reporters after they leave if they want to speak out. The support we're providing is desperately needed, and we're grateful that we're able to provide it.
Yeah. Miles, as you referenced earlier, Trump accused you of treason in April, signed an executive order directing the DOJ to criminally investigate you, presumably over the book you wrote criticizing him, describing the chaos that you witnessed while working inside the White House there. You've been seriously and continuously threatened by Trump supporters. How has all of this affected you and your family and your work?
Well, look, first I'll say this, Alex. I mean, in the United States of America, criticism is not classified. And 4 months ago, more than 4 months ago, the president leveled these allegations that I'm guilty of treason, and I haven't seen a shred of evidence of it yet. Why? Because he's inverted the justice process. They are trying to find evidence to fit the crime he's accused me of. And I suspect it's taking them a while because that evidence doesn't exist. But they want to find something, Alex, because they're going after Trump's enemies. And just being on that blacklist is completely disruptive to people's lives. And it's one of the things I want to be out there talking about as much as humanly possible, because dozens and dozens and dozens of people are now finding themselves, hundreds of people are finding themselves on Donald Trump's enemies list. And financially, it can wreck your life like it has ours. It puts you under immense legal stress and family stress and personal stress. We've had stalkers violently threaten our family, and professionally, it blew up the business that I started. I ran a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. that dissolved or is in the process of dissolving in the wake of this because my own business partners were worried about being in Trump's crosshairs and no longer wanted to be in business together. And that's just from him signing the
President Trump making his expectations clear this week. He wants unwavering loyalty and won't tolerate any dissent. Nowhere was that more clearly on display than the televised cabinet meeting lasting over 3 hours, in which Trump's team, quote, took their turns, each working a little bit harder than the last to offer Mr. Trump praise.
You made this country safe. You opened up the economy. You enforced the law.
It's just such a great opportunity, really, to recognize your leadership as a true champion for working people.
Sir, as we've said very often, economic security is national security, and our country has never been so secure thanks to you. You have brought us back from the edge.
Mr. President, I invite you to see your big, beautiful face on a banner in front of the Department of Labor, because you are really the transformational president of the American worker.
Well, this is the banner the Labor Secretary was referring to, unfurled, in fact, this week outside the department headquarters. Michael Hardaway and former Representative Charlie Dent are back with us. So, guys, Michael, you first. When you look at everything together, endless praise at that televised cabinet meeting, National Guard soldiers patrolling D.C. in the shadow of a giant banner of Trump's face, trying to take over running Union Station from Amtrak, firings at the CDC. Does this reflect democracy or something else?
What a sad sack of sycophants. I mean, the idea that they are praising this guy who is overseeing one of the worst economies in a very long time is shocking. I was actually in Beijing once, and I saw a giant poster just like that of President Xi at the airport, because that's what Donald Trump hopes to be, which is a dictator. And that's frankly what Speaker Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Thune have allowed him to do, which is behave like a dictator. You have this shameful episode of The Apprentice, I guess that's what this was, this cabinet meeting where they just heap praise on this guy, notwithstanding the fact that you have 7 million Americans who are unemployed. You have skyrocketing credit card debt. You've got skyrocketing food prices. Across the board, Americans are struggling financially, and they're wasting time heaping praise on this guy. It's shameful across the board. The thing about the Trump era that we should remember is not just that he was a crook, but the scores of people who enabled him, even though they knew better.
You know, Charlie, one op-ed in The Hill argues those Trump banners reveal his, quote, authoritarian ambition. In fact, Max Burns writes, up until now, presidents haven't needed to be glorified in this way, but Trump's, quote, need for validation is leading our nation down the dark path of strongman autocracy from which few countries have returned. Is Burns overreacting? And if not, Charlie, what's to stop it?
Well, look, he might be overreacting a little bit, but it is kind of scary and it's frightening, frankly, that the president of the United States image has to be hung over government buildings. And, you know, in watching that cabinet meeting, I was just relieved nobody used the term "dear leader," I guess. But it's certainly something that we don't expect to see in democratic societies. We don't see this in Western Europe or Japan or you know, Australia or Canada, you know, and certainly not in the United States. But we are now seeing it, which it sends a signal that this type of glorification of the president is well, it's almost undemocratic, I guess. But I just hope that it doesn't go beyond this. But I would like to think that more Republicans would push back on this. They cannot feel comfortable with any of these types of images being draped over government buildings. It's really unsettling.
You know, Michael, California Governor Gavin Newsom also warned about the country slipping into authoritarianism and predicted Trump will resist leaving office. Listen to this.
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second you want... I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you think he's going to run again?
Don't give me. You don't. Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? This is serious.
You may have just heard former White House attorney Ty Cobb say to me in the last segment, the last question I asked him, what is it that Trump has not yet done that you worry he will do? And he said, very simply, try to stop an election. So is Trump trolling, or is he serious when he jokes about sticking around through 2028 or running again? I mean, regardless of our constitutional constraints, why does he keep talking about Trump 2028?
He's dead serious. I mean, this is the way that he operates. He floats something as a joke, and then he actually ends up doing it. I have real concern that we may not have a free and fair election in the midterm elections next year and in the presidential in 3.5 years. And so I think for all of us who care about this democracy, we should take him at his word and stop assuming that things are just going to work out because they always have. He's broken nearly every rule that there is as it relates to being president of the United States.
Weakness matters more than it would for a typical old second-term president, because generally, you know, you're once you're in your second term, especially as you get closer and closer to the midterms, people are already starting to look towards the next president, be it your party or be it the next one, right, or the other party. And even if you still have control of Congress, you're starting to be treated a bit differently. But that's part of the game. There's a term limit. It's 2 terms, right? Whether or not you support term limits, they exist. And Donald wants to get around those. So for him, appearing weak, appearing sick, appearing old, appearing like he's got heart issues so bad they're affecting the veins in his legs, all of that is bad for him because he's going to need to pull off a literal coup. Because there's not enough support and probably not enough time to realistically organize a full-on constitutional amendment. There's not. Because there'll have to be a lot of debates about it. Do you abolish term limits? Do you change them? Do you make it so that it's 3 terms? Do you make it so that a president can serve 2 terms consecutively but then has to take a break? So a president can get 8 years, take 4 years off, and then get another 8. Whatever. There'd be a whole bunch of debates about that. Trump doesn't have time for that, and he knows that won't work. So he wants to literally have a coup where the military backs him and all of that, right? Like, that's his only way of staying in power beyond 8 years. But to have that happen, he needs an immense amount of support. And he also needs to convince his people that he's not just gonna die. And as we saw over this weekend so far, people were legitimately like, man, he's not around. Is he gone? Like, gone, right? And a lot of the big MAGA accounts, they weren't saying anything last night. Like, they weren't denying the rumors, almost like if they didn't know. They didn't actually know if he was fine. Turns out he was golfing this morning. Looks terrible, but turns out he's still 6 feet, not 6 feet under, just on the level, I guess. But that worry about his health is not the kind of thing that helps you get a coup. And losing Supreme Court cases isn't the kind of thing that gives confidence in a coup. Donald looks weak, and people like Vance and Rubio and others are already planning to replace him. And if they're making those plans, that means they're not in, and they're not on, in support of his 12-year plan.